Jordan, you know what dads always say to their sons when they make big mistakes? They don't say, "Oh, I'm so mad at you." What do they say? They say, "Jordan, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed." And that's how I feel about the Minnesota Vikings today. I didn't wake up angry. I didn't wake up wanting to break a wall or anything. Games where you lose on a last second Hail Mary or a last second field goal make you want to do that. Last night it was sort of just the perpetual face palm for about 3 hours. And the other thing, Jordan, what do we normally say on this show? Or maybe I should correct. What do you normally say on this show? You say two things. You typically start the show by saying, "Welcome in to Load the Box." The other thing you always say on this show is, after we drop our, guaranteed swear word for the episode, you say, "Oh, well, this is a family show." Well, Jordan, I have news for you. I do not really feel like welcoming anybody in today because I don't feel like I'm in a very welcoming mood. Hence why I did not start the show like that. And the other thing, well, this can stay a family show. That's fine. We want to keep our audience, all the kids and moms and dads that listen out there. That football game last night, that was not family content. That was grotesque. That was indecent. There should have been a viewer discretion advised thing at the top or one of those explicit content parental advisory labels that they put on albums. Because that was the worst showing of a 14-win team that I could have possibly imagined, and that was the one thing I didn't expect. I expected three possible outcomes last night: a Vikings close win, a Lions close win, or a Vikings blowout win because I felt the Vikings could run up and down the field on that defense. And I did not expect the Detroit Lions to beat the Vikings by 22 points. And yeah, got out of hand at the end. It was competitive for about 3 quarters. But the score, I feel, did amplify the feeling of that game. Detroit felt like they had a stranglehold on Minnesota for about 3 hours last night. And you probably hear it in my voice, and then my rant can be over, and we can talk about how the Buccaneers made the playoffs and Jordan got a little check mark by his prediction and his Super Bowl champ is still alive and everything. But, you can probably hear it in my voice. I feel sick. My family's been sick for about 10 days. Merry Christmas. I also, I found a white hair in my beard this weekend. Things are going great over here. And I don't think it's just because, my family's sick. I think this football team had something to do with that. So now that I have that off my chest, Jordan, how are you? Welcome to you to the show, and Happy New Year.
I'm bad. This is a piss po New Year. Yeah, man, look, so you texted me today. You said you wanted to start it off like radio rant style, and I was like, that's good. And I'm glad you did it, because look, my daughter is at the age where she knows what no means. And then she'll look at you and you'll say no. And then she'll do it anyway. And it doesn't disappoint me when she does that. It fills me with furious anger. And it's like, what do you mean? You understand you're not supposed to, jump on the couch because you could fall and hurt yourself. So when I say no, why do you start laughing and jump on the couch? And so, I told friend of the show, Dustin Baker of Vikes Now, go listen to that stuff. You probably already do. I was told by him last week that Sam Darnold was kind of a guaranteed lock to play at least good decent. And I, foolishly, will put a ban on the Sam contract talking point. I'm glad you did, because I confined my Sam take to final thoughts. It was a brief little 60-second nothing burger of like, he has to come back. He has to be back next year. He's playing out of his mind. And then he does this. And I'm not trying to be overreactive, but I've tried to simmer on this all day and see how I feel at different points in the day. I've had ups. Got to go out and play with my dog and my daughter in the snow. Mandatory, I'm from Ohio. I don't know, did you see... I'll tell this story in a little bit, but got to play with the dog in the snow, about a foot of snow here in Ohio. mandatory. I'm from Ohio, but I've also had downs today, shoveling the driveway, that kind of stuff. Through all of that, I've maintained this same take. We just got rid of Kirk Cousins because he played either like a top 5 QB, but then he had games, stretches, under the lights, defense are playing physical, refs aren't throwing as many flags, where he turned into like the 16th best QB in the league. So I don't know if you've ever watched someone, Joker from the Dark Knight style, set a big pile of money on fire. But we just watched Sam Darnold burn away probably $50 million. Not that, but probably closer to 30 or 40. He's still going to get some contract from somewhere. Probably going to be a tag and trade, in all honesty. But at this point, as a Vikings fan, and someone who, look, I'm enjoying this season. We're going to talk about the Rams game. We're going to give analysis on that. The season's not dead, okay? We're not dead. That didn't eliminate us from the playoffs. If we're going to get embarrassed, I'd rather have the embarrassing game at the tail end of the regular season than the tail end of the playoffs, right? But I think that looking ahead, like I love to do, and thinking of free agency off season, because that's when, in my opinion, championships are won. Yes, you have to go to McCarthy. And I want to see what we have in McCarthy, because now I think Sam has shown he plays really well sometimes, and he can get hot and kind of streaky. He also has a propensity to the Jacksonville game where he looks terrible. Really, the whole AFC South stretch of the season, he didn't play well. He just kind of was mediocre at best. And then he lit it up for a few weeks. Now he's back to not playing well. He looked terrible. He was getting pressured. And, the fix is obviously, okay, well, he needs a better O-line. If he's getting pressured and that's throwing him off his spot, he needs a better O-line. There's not going to be any money to buy an O-line if we sign him to a $50 million contract. So we're back to that discussion point. I'm furious. I thought the defense played outstanding. We can start talking about the game now instead of just doing rants. I thought the defense played outstanding. They gave you every opportunity to go win that game. They gave you the ball on the plus side of the field twice, and you just, mandatory cuss word, you just shit the bed. You really did. I mean, you just fell apart. The offense could not handle any adversity. I want to talk a little later in the show about why it seems that Dan Campbell and these Detroit Lions own Kevin O'Connell's Vikings, and granted, last season there were backups, whatever, but just seems like they have a stranglehold on this team. They have this team's number almost. A real big brother, little brother situation going on with this rivalry. Also, my new favorite rivalry. We swept the Packers. I think the Lions rivalry is the most fun, but I don't know, man. Am I wrong in this? I think everybody's kind of unison. The defense played outstanding until the very end of the game where, Gibbs just started gashing them.
I agree. You look at the final stats, you'll see 394 yards for the Lions and 6 yards per play and all that. When the game was still in question, the Vikings defense was outstanding. But it gets to the fourth quarter, you're down by 8, and you got to start taking chances. And they were more aggressive, having to go after it a little bit, bringing more pressure, and the Lions do a good job of being able to beat that if it's repetitive. And so you cannot fault the defense for this game. If you do, you didn't watch the game. I mean, it's a little bit sad, but the biggest what if from that game, other than Darnold's inability to throw touchdown passes inside the 5-yard line, was what if Andrew Van Ginkel actually picked off that screen pass and ran it back for the house? That's a sad thing to sort of put your what if on, because if we're relying on a third pick 6 from an edge rusher to save us in that game, then there's bigger problems. As a side note, I don't know why Detroit kept doing that after Van Ginkel nearly decapitated.
They were taunting
Jahmyr
him.
Gibbs in the first half. That was just silly. But the defense was outstanding. I thought, Jared Goff did not play well. Yes, he had a lot of completions, but really the reality was Jameer Gibbs was the driving force, and when it got down to the end of it, it was just wearing us down. And the defense struggling to keep the game close was more of a product of the offense not keeping them off the field and not sustaining drives. And it was just it was a complete offense no show. So when you look at it like that, I don't think there's really any blame that you can put on the defense
Yeah.
in a game like that.
I have a
Um,
question, and this is something
yeah,
because everyone, is not everyone, but like people around the NFL, let's say, are talking about like the Vikings won the turnover battle 2-0 in this game, and they still got, just dog walked or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Pundits that went to bed at halftime and said, I'll just check the box score in the morning and then base my takes on that, of doing what they usually do. But I want to petition. I want to be the driving force behind this. If you miss a 50 plus yard field goal, that should count as a turnover. I think that giving Detroit the ball, you're down 8, giving Detroit the ball at the 50 or the almost the 50 is as bad as a strip sack recovery and just fall on it recovery by
yeah,
the defense. You know what I mean? I mean it seems like, and I'm not saying, look, they still lost the turnover battle, the Lions did, but 2-1
sure.
in that case. But the moment that it was where you're down 8, you're sending your kicker that has kicked the ball out of bounds at like right before halftime, basically gave them 3 points by doing so. He Will Reichard's not good right now. Like, something's wrong. I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's mental. If it's an injury, he needs to go on IR, and we need to bring John Palcolomo back, and then we can go back to Will next season. If it's mental, we need to cut him, and we need to bring John Palcolomo back and maybe address kicker again. But either way, he's not good. So trotting him out there for another 50-plus yard field goal, then the ice refs us, which I'm not going to talk about the refs. I thought the refs let Detroit get away with a lot. I'm sure they let the Vikings get away with a lot as well. It was a very physical game. It's the old NBA playoff defense type thing where it's like, James Harden's not getting to go to the free throw line 25 times in a night anymore because they're not calling every ticky-tack foul. So they were letting the Lions be aggressive in this game. I don't know. I thought that was, what was your thought on O'Connell's decision to kick the field goal? I think it was like 4th and 6, 4th and 7 in that situation.
Yeah, yeah. It was fourth and medium. I was surprised by it in some ways, but was not surprised given that Reichard had just made a 51 yarder
Yeah.
and it was perfect. Like it wasn't a oh boy kick. It was booming right down the middle, split the uprights, hit the net, like as perfect as you want. Um and the offense had shown no ability to convert anything. So are you going to potentially have 0 points because Darnold had the yips and couldn't complete a pass on a had to have it play? Or are you going to give your kicker, who has shown plenty ability to hit long kicks, the opportunity to make another one? And then what O'Connell had said either today or yesterday in one of his press conferences was basically that. Like, yeah, I thought Will could hit it, and then the way the defense was playing, you get another stop, we got the ball right back to go take the lead. So I was not super surprised by it, but to double click on your Reichard thought, it was something that I just noticed again in the Green Bay game. He had a really bad kickoff in that game too, where it landed short of the landing zone, and he missed 2 field goals. And I don't know. To me, I would be worried that he's still not healthy
Yeah.
because when did we start seeing Reichard issues? He was perfect this season until that Indianapolis game. He got hurt in the middle of that game, missed a couple kicks. Then he comes back later in the year, 4 or 5 weeks later. But he hasn't really been right since. He still made some kicks, some long ones. But it's just, I don't know. It's unsatisfactory. I think the biggest thing that gives me the red flag of hopefully, or gives me the red flag about his health are the two just horrible kicks on the kickoffs. Not the field goals, the kicks. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna miss an occasional long field goal. Like it happens. But chunking two kickoffs is just like what?
Yeah.
So that's the part that worries me. And I know that he has had injury issues in his past in college. So that's a worry that I have just in general about Reichard. And I honestly don't worry too much about his mental. It's just it's something that I think is one of his, people have praised him profusely about. Um, and he kicked under Nick Saban, so you have to have a tough skin. So
Yeah.
I just
I
I think to me, I'm a little worried about his health.
I'm curious, and I want to do this talking point instead. I'm throwing curveballs at you now. I want to do the talking point instead of why does Dan Campbell seem to dominate this rivalry now? I want to talk about what the Vikings need to do to catch up, if that makes sense. So kind of where we need to address. Before we get into that, I do want to ask, or not ask, but just one more thing on the Reichard point, which is Kevin O'Connell's got to start coaching like Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell do. If the kicker is, I know O'Connell's gonna say he trusts the kicker. Any good coach is gonna say, yeah, I trust my kicker 100%. You don't want to add fuel to any fire that's going on, but he needs to start, okay, we're staring down a 50 plus yard field goal here. It's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6. Running the ball is an option. We don't have to throw to the sticks, where they're expecting, and we can run the ball, try and catch them off guard. Even if you don't get it, if you get a positive play, it's a much more manageable 4th down now, and then you can go and execute a play on 4th down. So I'm hoping to see that in the playoffs. I'm hoping to see him play like you have a kicker that you don't trust to. I don't think you can trust Reichel, is kind of what I'm saying. I think you have to play
Yeah.
as though,
Yeah.
look, a game on the line, 55 yards, yeah, trot him out there. But 3rd quarter, you're down, you're down 3, you're down 6, whatever it is. You don't trot him out there for 50 plus yards. At that point, I'd rather see a punt and play field position and trust the defense. Let's talk about what the Vikings need to do to get over this hump, because this is a hump. I mean, this is one of the best seasons in franchise history, and you had a chance to go out, be the 1 seed for the first time since I was a baby, since I was 1 year old, 1 year old, and you poop the bed, whatever the case is. Is it a personnel thing? Is it a mentality thing? I know O'Connell kept saying 1 game at a time. In my opinion, yeah, you can do the 1 game at a time thing, but then you get to this point, you can't just say, "Oh, it's just another game. It's just another. Here we go. Just gonna go into Detroit." And you have to be like, "Hey, this is the biggest game a lot of you have played in your lives. Act like it and execute." And you have to kind of amp yourself up to that level, because it felt like for Muit, Detroit came out and they were moving. They seemed they had the dog in them, if you will. It's that eye test. You can't put a stat to it, but they seem to outdog the Vikings in this one. What do you think? Is this a coaching mentality thing, or is this more of just Detroit's got the dudes and the Vikings don't?
Before this season, I might have said the Vikings don't have the dudes or the Vikings don't have the toughness, maybe. But all of this season, for 16 games, they have had the toughness and they've been the tougher team. Even that first loss against Detroit, you couldn't look at that game and say, oh, they were out toughed or they were out physical. It was just Detroit was a little better that day. And they looked more like a contender that day than the Vikings did. Which is understandable given, you're halfway through the season with a team that had no expectations and Detroit was supposed to go win the Super Bowl this year. So that loss in week 7 was understandable. And it wasn't shocking to, see them lose the way they did. It was just one team just made a couple more plays. I'm going to take the really low-hanging fruit, cheap route on this one. I honestly felt the quarterback was the reason the Vikings lost yesterday. Feel that the team was, not up for the challenge. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is really fast, and I think he's really hard to catch sometimes. So maybe you need some faster players on defense. Um, but maybe I would say two things, to expound a little bit on the quarterback thing. I think, you know, the coaching maybe wasn't prepared enough. I think that's maybe a little bit harsh, but I think there's maybe an element of why weren't there more adjustments to make when you knew, after a half especially, this is what Detroit was going to do defensively? Why not, outside of that first drive in the third quarter when Cam Akers had the 58-yard run to set up the first and goal. That drive was awesome. It was a lot of running backs. It was a lot of getting the ball out quick. But it felt like there was still too much reliance on long developing dropbacks, etc. So was the coach? This is more of a question, just a rhetorical question. Of like, was the coaching staff not prepared enough? And maybe for the first time all year was out prepared. And I think maybe there could be an element too of the Vikings receivers. You can say what you want about being held, and you can say Detroit was holding, which I think Jefferson copped to, and some reporters noted, and all that. And I think it's silly that the officials sort of just let holding go often. But how can you overcome it? I mean, anyone who has played sports knows that you can't rely on a ref to blow a whistle to save you. So what can you do to overcome it? And yes, Darnold was missing throws, but also were the receivers struggling to create separation? I think there's
Yeah.
probably some truth there. Again, without watching the film, but like in real time watching that happen. Every catch was contested, right? It was so whether that was holding or whether that was just good coverage, you can debate that, but there has to be an ability to overcome. But I really do think, Jordan, that if this team is to get to the level of Detroit, the quarterback play has to be calm and proficient. And Darnold's been really good this year. I don't want to come on here and just pile on and say the guy's a bum and his 103 passer rating for the season is fake, because he has been outstanding
Yeah.
for 80% of this season, and that's really good. I mean, he's been better this year than Patrick Mahomes. So we have to acknowledge that he's had a really good year. But if this team is to beat teams like Detroit or Philadelphia, or heck, even LA next week, Darnold has to play well. It's just that simple. And he has to play calm. Yesterday, I don't know what it looked like to you, but it just looked like his feet were chattery. He was skittish. I don't know if he was jumpy. I don't know if it was the pressure. I don't know if it was the, big stage. I don't know. I'm not going to try and get in his head. But he did not execute the way he normally does, or we've seen him able to. Because the last thing I'll say on this, and then I can be done here, but I don't want to say that, oh, everybody now knows how to beat the Vikings. It's just pressure Sam Darnold. Because Darnold has leading into week 16. I don't have the numbers for the final 2 weeks of the season. I would imagine he was pretty good against Green Bay, even though he wasn't pressured very much. But leading into week 16, he had the highest passer rating in the NFL against pressure. 94.5 or something like that. So it's not as if he can't beat pressure. But for whatever reason in this game, he was more affected by it, etc. He wasn't able to get out of the pocket. So
I don't
I
think
think
he
maybe,
was.
yeah,
I don't think he
go
was
ahead.
affected by it. And this was Chris Collinsworth was saying this, like in the second half, like Donald missed an open guy. I think it was Hawkinson, might have been Nalo. I can't remember. It was like this little out breaking route, right? Like just a short little out, and he missed it. And Collinsworth was like, the defense, the pressure has gotten to him, and now he's missing passes because the defense and the pressure has gotten to him. But, and this is my problem, where you say all of the completions were contested. They were, but a lot of the misses were wide open. And that's why I'm hesitant to say, like, shame on you, TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. You let Sam Darnold down. And I'm not saying that's what you are saying, but I don't even want to put any of the blame on them because it felt like Hawkinson on a crucial third down, wide open down the seam. Darnold throws it over his head. Jefferson in the red zone, wide open on a little stutter go. Darnold he overthrew everybody all night. Even the good balls, like the good passing plays. Jefferson had a pretty big one. Naylor had a pretty big one. I think Josh Oliver had a pretty big one. They were poorly thrown. They were not good balls. They were, and maybe it's something, like, I'm not a film junkie by any means, but maybe it's something with man coverage forces you to be pinpoint accurate, where zone coverage you can just kind of throw to the hole and let your guy adjust. Maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know what it is, and I don't think this is the recipe to beat the Vikings. I don't think, I think that Detroit, in an odd way, is so banged up, and their defense is, like, so bad. I think it made O'Connell hesitant. I think he came in with the game plan of, yeah, we're going to throw the ball all over the yard today. And Sam's going to have 500 yards and 5 tuds, and he's going to break the record, Culpepper's record, and we're going to walk out of here looking like $1 million, and everybody's going to talk about how good we are and blah, blah, blah. And then when they are blitzing every play, I think they blitzed on like 62% of the pass downs or something. Like, they'll just, every time you drop back the pass, they're bringing 6 or 7 guys and leaving your dudes in man coverage, and you have no time to let these long in-cutting routes develop. Yeah, that is a problem. So I think, look, O'Connell is not blameless in all of this. O'Connell definitely gets a large chunk of the pie, but I agree with what you're saying. Darnold played like crap. And Darnold's played like crap a couple of times this year in wins, so we let him off the hook. But, like, this was a hot topic back when the Vikings dropped 2 consecutive games 18 years ago, whatever it was, earlier this season. People were talking, like, if McCarthy was healthy, would they go to him after the Lions and the Rams game? Like, Darnold didn't look great in either. Like, I know there was some missed face masks, blah, blah, blah. Which also, this is way off top. Another missed face mask on Sam Darnold? Are you kidding me, NFL? What are we doing? Like, I get not calling some holdings, letting them play. Zadarius Smith grabs his face mask and yanks his head down like that, and you don't throw a flag? I'm dumbfounded. Three this season they've missed. Doesn't matter. We lost by 22.
Was that on like the 17-yard sack or
Yes,
something?
yes, it was.
Quarter?
As soon as he went down, he looked at the ref and grabbed his face mask, and I said, Donald says he got face masked. I believe him. And then they showed the replay, and I was like, oh, look at that. It was a small face mask, but a face mask's a face mask. Like, it wasn't this egregious, he ripped his helmet off and beat him with it Myles Garrett style. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that you need I agree with what you said. I think you need a QB that can handle I don't want to say the pressure, like, of the moment, but Sam came into this game jacked up. You could just tell. And that's kind of been a trend. I haven't talked about it because I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer, but he's stouted a lot of these games lately. Missing guys, gotta be better than what he was. And then he got better. So I held out the hope up until the fourth quarter that any moment now, Sam's going to tone it on and, settle in and start delivering some really good balls. He never did. So it really did change my perception of Sam and I don't know what the world is, what I want the Vikings to do in the offseason at the quarterback position. It really made me like, yeah, it's J.J. McCarthy. It's 9 months, and we'll watch J.J. play, and I hope Sam goes and does well with whatever team, the Vegas Raiders or whoever ends up, trading us a couple of picks from or whatever. But it really was one of those things where it's like, yeah, it seems like he's just a peak and valley guy, and the Vikings, I want to find that guy that is just always in the top 7. He never, even on his worst day, it's like, yeah, they lost. He didn't play his best game. it was still a good game. You know, like you watch Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the outlier. He has some days where it's like, what was that? You know, so, but one of those types of guys. What'd you say?
What Josh Allen's 5 interception, 2 fumble type days where he's
Yeah,
just
one of the like the Baltimore game where it's like that can't like he has the lowest pass or completion percentage in like NFL history, like since the forward pass was invented. Yeah, it's he has those, but his highs make up for it. You know, once every 2 years when he does that.
outside of, and this will just be quick, and then we'll jump to the Rams here. But outside of just whether it's Darnold or somebody else, improved quarterback play, are there any other keys that you would see that would be important to beating Detroit more consistently?
I was shocked, and this is kind of cheating at this question, but I didn't get a chance to say it, so I'm going to answer your question by cheating. I think the Vikings are in a really good place past like the front seven. I thought the front seven played really well. I thought the defensive tackles, who I poop on all the time, even though they're really good in run defense, played well. I also thought we got pressure. Ginkle and Gonald were charging in there, doing that kind of stuff. I think obviously the O-line needs addressed. I mean, if Detroit's gonna go back to this. If we play them in a few weeks, they're gonna go back to this. Okay, pressure the crap out of Sam Darnold and be super physical on the outside. So you can kind of fix that with play calling. You can go max protect, especially if they're in man, like cover zero man. You can just say, okay, then we'll only have 2 guys run routes and only 2 defenders will cover them, and it's just 2 one-on-ones, and we trust that Addison or Jefferson will win them. So this season, I think it's doable. O'Connell has to pivot. I know he loves chucking the ball all over the yard on 7-second developing route. He has to pivot to, I'm going to give Justin Jefferson a route that it doesn't have 9 different options. It is strictly it is to beat a one-on-one, and it's to get the ball out in a heartbeat, and not a wide receiver screen. Those don't count. It has to be something, whether it's a stud or go like he did in the red zone. But, long term, I think the Vikings took a big step this season. This was a big talking point that we had about the Vikings taking it to teams, because there's kind of 3 NFL games, right? There's one team is very out-physicaled, or there's 2 NFL games. One team is very out-physicaled and looks like little brother, and then there's basically every NFL game where it's like, oh, these are 2 good teams and they're competing, and hoorah, this is football. And I think the Vikings took a big step in being the aggressor in the first type of game. I think they just need to have another offseason where they go out and they get guys that are mean and want to hit and want to really make the other team feel uncomfortable and dread the next time they have to come, play football. So I think they need to continue to find guys like Cashman, like Ginkle and Gonald, and the free agents that were brought in that really are just, they are no-nonsense badasses on the football field, and they need to bring in a few more of those. Yep. The secondary looked fine. It was Cam Bynum. I think Cam Bynum played himself out of some money too. The 2 Gibbs touchdowns, I looked, and it was Bynum diving, and he was in the wrong spot, and it was like, Cam, I love the Disney dances, but did we practice a Disney dance instead of practicing our run discipline? Did we? Yeah, the question has to be asked. Were we doing the jump in, jump rope dance that I suggested last week instead of watching tape and worrying about where Gibbs is going to be whenever he does these little counters and all that? So, Bynum probably getting replaced. And that's just a money thing. I like Cam Bynum, but, I'd like to see his replacement be a very physical Blake Cashman, but 30 pounds lighter and a lot faster. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah. Harrison Smith. We need a second Harrison Smith.
He had an incredible interception yesterday, by the way. But so it sounds like Jordan and I are, doing the eulogy on this team. It's not over yet, surprisingly. They get to play another football game, at least one more. So we can talk about that. Um, they play the Los Angeles Rams again. Um, just like they played the Rams following that Lions loss back in October. And again, we're going out to the West Coast. It'll be a night game. It'll be a primetime game Monday night. And I think there's a lot that, we can make about this matchup. Um, I'm gonna let you go first, Jordan, because I want to give you the chance because I kind of just unloaded on the Lions earlier at the beginning of the show. Um, other than just this being a chance for O'Connell and Darnold to sort of like prove again what they're made of. What are you looking at going into this game? Um, Matchups that worry you maybe to begin with.
I want to start with the most worrying matchup for me is it's just gonna. Man, this is terrible. Maybe I am overreacting a bit, but I'm an emotional man. You guys know this. Sam Darnold, I'm worried. I'm not thrilled that he's the starting quarterback for this playoff run. Like that's scary. That he is capable of what we saw Sunday night. That's in his bag. He also has Green Bay. So what are we getting, Sam? Are we getting 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions? Or are we getting a 1 interception? Or are we getting somehow no picks, but no touchdowns, barely 150 yards? Like, which Sam are we getting? And I think the Rams, they are a well-coached team. Sean McVay is smart. He's just a very good coach, and I think he has been around long enough now that he is going to go to his defensive coordinator and he's going to say, "Did you see what the Lions did?" And his DC is going to say, "Yeah, I did." And he's going to say, "We're going to do that too, right?" That's the we are going to blitz the piss out of Sam and make him look really bad again, right? And I think they're going to try and duplicate what the Lions did. Now, you can beat what the Lions did. I think it's actually kind of easy to beat what the Lions did. Sam just has to execute the passes when they're there. Sam has to hit TJ Hawkinson when he's wide open. Sam has to hit Justin Jefferson when he's wide open. You have to make the easy plays, and then you sprinkle in, a couple difficult ones, and all of a sudden we're going back to Detroit for the divisional round possibly. So that's what scares me. I do want to point something out, and this is just something fun that I saw. The Vikings got so unlucky that we played Puka right after he came back, Cooper Kupp right after he came back. Like, both of them, I get they were coming off of injury, but they were fresh and they were like all geared up, ready to go. They are a different team offensively. If the Vikings can shut down the run, which I'm not going to take that and get into a big talker, Cooper Kupp, I saw Next Gen Stats released this little tidbit. He ran like 3.5 or 4 miles in a game a couple weeks ago. Do you know what his stat line was, Will?
Probably not very good.
It was 0-0-0. It was nothing. He ran 4 miles and got nothing. I'm not saying Cooper Kupp is not still. He could shock me and be really good, but that's a matchup I see a lot of people are talking about, like the Rams' two-headed monster at wide receiver. And it's like when Jefferson had Thielen as his running mate in 2022, and people were like, yeah, Jefferson and Thielen, they're really good. And Vikings fans were like, Thielen's kind of getting slow. And he's not getting the same type of separation he used to. Like, we had to be the ones that were like, it's time to take the old dog behind the shed and send him to Carolina, So, that's something that I'm seeing a lot of people fearmonger about. The offense doesn't scare me that much. Matt Stafford is Matt Stafford, and maybe they'll wait until the playoffs to tone it on, but that's my 2 cents.
So I think maybe just to provide a little counter on that, the worry that I have is that this Vikings team has been prone to allowing wide receivers to have big days. I think Dustin might have even mentioned that last week. And the Rams have 2 of them. And yes, Cooper Kupp is old and he's not as good anymore. He's not as fast anymore, but he's still savvy. And if the Vikings do decide to play a lot of zone coverage, Cooper Kupp's going to be able to find some holes. So you do then wonder, does it make sense to play more man coverage like they did against Green Bay? It's something to consider that I would think about with this matchup because that's my main worry of the Vikings just being their defense being neutralized by two good wide receivers. To your point about the Rams defense, just blitzing the crap out of the Vikings, I think there's maybe uh, you know, it's definitely something they're gonna bake into their game plan. Whether or not they do it all day is another thing because the Rams do not blitz very much. If you look at sort of like where they rank, they're sort of in the bottom half to bottom third of how much they blitz and how much they even get pressure. So I would imagine they're not going to just sell out and become the Lions overnight. However, if you remember, Jordan, that Cardinals game in week 11 or 12 or 13 or whatever it was, and the Vikings looked dead in the water for about 3 quarters. A lot of that was because the Cardinals were just bringing a lot of creative blitzes, and the Vikings were not able to pick up the protection, and that's a quarterback problem. That's not an offensive line problem a lot of the time, because it's adjusting to the right protection at the line of scrimmage, etc. And so that's something that, like you said, I think the Rams probably should consider, even though it's not necessarily who they are. Um, I think it's a good point you make.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to, because we forget the Vikings they played half of that game when they were in comeback mode. They played that with Quessenberry at left tackle, because that's the game Darisaw blew his knee out in right before halftime. Yeah. So the Vikings offensive line, I think Cam Robinson has kind of been a roller coaster of very good, very meh. But I think he's been consistently better than Quessenberry. So I think the Vikings O-line is going to stifle this Rams defensive front a little bit more. So I do think they'll have to get creative with the pressure. It's crucial to me if the Vikings want to win this game, it's Kyron Williams. And I'm not just saying that because my Fighting Irish are playing in Miami in a couple of days, for a chance to go to win the Natty. But Kyron Williams is a very good back. He's dangerous. And I think that he must be stopped because I think it really is. And I said this to Dustin last week and Yannick, but I was like, cliches are cliches because they're usually true. Oh, they are, they work. You know what I mean? Like the cliche of Sean McVay wants to run the ball first because once you start overcommitting to defend the run, Puka or Kupp are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to make a big splash play. And it's just this patient, like it's just jab, 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 and then they throw the big knockout hook at you. And so you have to shut Kyron Williams down. You have to, the front seven just has to play out of their minds. It's playoff football, and this is a coaching thing. I hope Kevin O'Connell is not going into meetings and tape and film, all that kind of stuff. I hope he's not going in there saying, like, we got to go 1-0 this week. It's just another game. No big deal. I love his personality, but, like, man, you just got your hind end handed to you on national TV. You got to go out here, and I'm not saying you're going to blow LA out. You don't see many, road teams blow out their opponents. Although I think Green Bay did it last year to Dallas. You got to go in and send a message from the beginning that we are here to dominate this game. You're not going to run the ball on us. You're going to have to beat our secondary, and you're going to have to stop Grenard and Van Ginkel. Not to mention Pace is going to come at you like he's fired out of a cannon a couple of times, and he's going to be bringing pressure. And, look, they picked up a lot of those pressures in the first game, so it's going to have to be creative. But, Stafford's not the most mobile guy. I'm not saying he's a sitting duck back there, Cousins off an Achilles injury, but he is an older, statuesque QB. So if you can get some pressure on him, you're going to get some sacks on him. And I don't think they sacked him at all in the first game. So that's so crucial for them to get there.
You are correct. They did not allow any sacks against the Vikings in Week
Yeah.
8. I'm gonna get to my score prediction and my game ball in the biggest game of the Vikings season. Obviously, to me, it's the things that worry me. Like I said, it's the two wide receivers, um, and then what Darnold are we gonna get? Is he gonna bounce back? Like he's shown the ability to do. Or are we gonna get a lot of the same of what we saw yesterday? And it's a worry. I don't think we can pretend that he's all of a sudden horrible, but the reality of what we saw yesterday was very jarring. And that although the Rams are not as good as the Lions, they're gonna have a plan and they're gonna have a good plan. This is a team that has had a lot of postseason experience, and so um, I have the Vikings losing this game. I have them losing 23-26. I think, like I said, my worries are what my worries are. And again, I would not be shocked if they won. I think my key to the victory, though, is the running game. And O'Connell has shown more patience with it and more commitment to it over the last few weeks. And I think it's going to be crucial to do that on Monday night because although this is not a team that the Vikings ran the ball well against in Week 8, the Rams are not a great run defense. They're sort of middle of the pack to bottom third. And consistently being able to run the ball is going to make Sam Darnold's life so much easier. Even if it's 4.2 yards a carry, it doesn't need to be, Cam Akers for 60. We need to have consistent ability to run the ball and churn out some yards. This team is going to win the game. They're going to have to rely on their most experienced and most prolific offensive playoff performer, and that's Aaron Jones. He has been fantastic. We can't forget that this guy's on our team. And he has been fantastic in the postseason in his career. 7 games, 8 touchdowns, 4.9 yards a carry, 8.4 yards a reception. He has been absolutely fantastic in his postseason games. That game against the Cowboys last year, he just laughed them out of their own building. And he has the ability to change a game still. That's still in him. And even if he only gets 16 carries, it doesn't need to be 25. He is going to be a huge key, not only for the offense's success, but also just making life a little bit easier for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think that's good. You froze for just a second. What was your what did you have the score at?
I had the score, the Vikings losing 23-26.
23-26. So I heard a stat the other day. The Rams, like not including that Seattle game at the end of the season. This is easily fact checkable. I should probably do it. I think it said like they hadn't given up like more than 10 points in like a month or something. Like the defense has been pretty
I will
dominant.
check that while you
Okay, all right.
you go.
But their defense has been playing incredibly well. The Vikings offense just had its worst performance of my lifetime. So I'm gonna go. I so if you like Men in Black flashed my memory, and you just showed me the Vikings lost to the Lions. They lost big to the Lions, and I didn't watch it. Like I didn't know. I would have assumed it would have been like 35-70. Like I would have assumed that's how we lost it. Our defense just really didn't show up. But I think I have. It might be an overreaction. Everything in me says this should have been a win. I predict the Vikings to win a playoff game. Look, that prediction looks pretty good right now. I said we were gonna be a wild card team and win a playoff game. And I really wanted it to be against Detroit. I really wanted to meet Detroit in the first round. But now we're going to have to meet them in the second round if we even get a chance to meet them again. I'm going to go, because the score prediction's over, by the way. I'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm going to go with the Vikings losing. I'm going to say last time we lost by 2 to Detroit, and then we lost by multiple possessions to the Rams. This time we lose by multiple possessions to the Lions, and now we're going to lose by 2 to the Rams. I'm going to go 20-18 kind of a funky skull, low scoring defensive game. I think. Here you go. You ready? You ready for how the heartbreak happens? Missed Will Reichard field goal. Ball game. Season. Heartbreak. Dagger. He's gone. We all hate our lives. We all go to work on Tuesday, tired, exhausted, and pissed off. And for Vikings fans, it's like you go in and you talk to everybody about like, yeah, man, that sucks so bad. For me, I have to go to the season, into work the next day and have all these Bengals fans be like, we didn't make the playoffs, but you guys didn't win one either. So funny. So I'm gonna have to deal with that. We'll see what the actual result ends up. Giving Will his flowers really quick here. Multiple like exact score predictions, not score predictions, but exact margins of victory for the Vikings this season. That's impressive. I had 0. I had one game where I predicted it was one, like I was 1 point off of the margin of victory. Will had multiple with 0. An absolute blowout, although my 66-7 does not look that bad. Like if you look, I think 66 to the spirit of 66-7 that I predicted we would lose last week is closer to the outcome than 34-35 was. Like, because I put, and I think I said that to you, even though I was still 37 points off. But yeah, man, for a game ball, if the Vikings are going to pull this off, I'm cheating again. I'm going with Will. I'm saying I think this is going to be a low scoring defensive struggle type of game, and I think for the Vikings to win it, you can't miss a kick because that's a turnover, and you can't have a dumb special teams kickoff out of bounds, kick, out of the landing zone. You can't give them short fields. It's one thing if Donald gets strip sacked or something, because it's like, that the offense is supposed to have a turnover every game, or every other game, something like that. Reichard can't give them the ball in basically a first down away from field goal range, and he's done that twice now. You guys know how I feel about it. I've already went on a rant about it. My final thoughts, really quick. I want to see the Vikings. I've said this so many times on this show, and I'll say it until they do it. I want to see the Vikings turn into a power run scheme. I'm tired of Garrett Bradbury and the undersized O-linemen that are really good at getting into space and opening lane. I want the Vikings to be able to, if they have the ball at the 3-yard line, run the ball 4 times and guarantee themselves a touchdown. I'm tired of having to throw the ball because we cannot possibly run the ball in between the tackles in those areas. I should have answered your question earlier about personnel wise what they need to do. They have to get to that area. There was something else I had. I can't remember what it was. Must not have been that important. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Will, I'm going to let you take us home after I tell everyone to follow Will on X at Will Badlose. Check out the Bad Loser blog. Check out VikingsTerritory.com. And also follow the show on X at LTB Vikings. Oh, my story. This is what it was. This is important. I got blocked yesterday for the first time in my life. Are you ready to hear the egregious offense I had that got me blocked? That got the show. Really, we got blocked, but that got us blocked. I made a tweet during the Tampa Bay game when they were down, and during the Carolina game when Carolina was winning. And I said, what a crappy time to be a football fan in the South. The Saints and the Panthers are awful, and the Bucks and the Falcons can't put them away, and the SEC lost a ton of bowl games or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. And someone replied, called me a dumb Minnesota F. You know what F stands for? Yeah. And said, just went off about how, well, actually, the SEC has went 8-9 in their bowl competitions, and the Big Ten has only went 9-9, something like that. And I was like, so I took a screenshot and I posted it, and, anyone that listens to the show knows, I say it every show, I'm from Ohio. I'm a dumb Ohio F, not a dumb Minnesota F, but I couldn't tell this person that because he blocked me for simply saying that the South was bad at football this season. I didn't say historically. I said this season it's been a rough year to be a Southern football fan. So there's the block story. That is how I will end the show, with a little bit of fun that I had on X on Sunday afternoon.
I absolutely love that the SEC was whining and whining about not getting enough teams into the playoff, and Tennessee got ran into the ground by Ohio State,
Yeah.
and Georgia got dog walked by independent Notre Dame, who everyone thinks is always overhyped.
Play like a champion today.
It was just chef's kiss because we hear it all the time that the SEC is king and all that
It's just
nonsense,
different. It's just different.
and it was just they were no better than anybody else.
Nope.
Arizona State put up more of a fight than Georgia did.
Oh God, yeah.
So think about that. Boise State put up more of a fight than Georgia. Boise State was competitive until the end.
Yeah.
Georgia was never really in that game. Okay, we don't care about college football. This is we talk about the NFL here. My final thoughts. So other than Jordan, you get to hang out with Cincinnati people, and potentially get roasted for your team losing a playoff game. Yeah, that might happen. Whatever. I get to go on a business trip. Also, my camera just got weird, not a focus. So hello. Um, I'm going on a business trip the day after the playoff game. So, and I will be with many people from Detroit.
Oh.
So that could be either really bad or really salty because we'd be playing them in 4 days, kind of thing. So yeah, we could both be in weird boats. My final thoughts for today are really though centered on this team. And this isn't a eulogy. This isn't, all that, but I just think something that I just remarked on, didn't get the chance to say last week because of the family illness that we've been dealing with over here, and I missed the show, is just that this team is quite special, Jordan, and I think it's something that we do need to appreciate. And 5 seed or not, 14 wins does not happen in the NFL. 14 wins really should be the 2 seed. It would be the 2 seed in the AFC, and it's the second best record in the NFC. So there is just, maybe it's the third if there's a tiebreaker with Philly, whatever. 14 wins. It's a remarkable season, and what we've seen that this organization has done now in the last few years is remarkable. And um, the C word culture gets thrown around a lot. It's evident. It's real. This is a very different place to come to work than it was 4 years ago, and people want to come to Minnesota now. And it's something that I think we all can be very grateful for and excited for what is going to come in the years to follow here. I don't think Kevin O'Connell is going to be traded unless you really listen to those Reddit and X.com reports, but the reality is this is a fantastic organization now that is quite easy to cheer for. Because of the good people and also just the good work that they are doing. The other thing too that I just remarked as well that just is another good thing about this organization is, unlike many other teams, you'll notice this, Jordan, teams put up bulletin board material all the time. The Cincinnati mayor trash talks Patrick Mahomes, and look how far that got him. And teams are putting up bulletin board material for other teams to come smash down, um, discrediting their opponents, whatever. If you notice, the Vikings never do that. They are a very inward focused team, and that it's very clear that yes, they respect their opponents. They give their opponents credit, probably sometimes too much credit, just so that they don't stretch to the other side. They are very focused on themselves and improving themselves, and I think it's something very noteworthy, and it's good. You're not walking into these situations just giving yourself a target on your back. So, um, it's a fantastic team, fantastic coaching staff and organization. It's one that's, like I said, easy to cheer for. Hopefully, we'll be back next week with some exciting news to talk about. First playoff game in 2 years. It's exciting. I think if we're honest with ourselves, this team has a better chance of making a run that 22 team did, even though we started that playoff run with a home game. So this was Load the Box. This was fun. We'll talk to you soon. Let's go, y'all.